Good morning, and thank you for joining us at Absa's first Tech Roast. My name is Neser. I head up cloud adoption for the group. I've been with the group for about 2 years, been working in IT for about 20 years, and we are joined here today by one of Absa's top young talent. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Mikhail Dindar. I'm one of the graduates at Absa Group, and I'm working in the cloud office, which means he is my boss.
I am he.
You are. And we're going to have a very honest conversation now, or we'll do our best.
Let's press play on the first Tech Roast. Pick one of these bags, and we'll get into that topic.
Oh, and would you look at that? Surprise, surprise. Today we're talking about cloud migration, faster or just complicated.
It's a great topic, and it's a topic that is so upfront with so many people within the organization today around cloud adoption, cloud migrations. Let me get into the first opening question. What was your first real experience with cloud? Were you excited? So was it exciting? Were you confused? Was it confusing? Or was it a bit chaotic?
Yeah, I was probably 5 years old, looking up at the sky, going, Mom, what's that? And she's like, you're a dumb kid, that's a cloud.
Typical Gen Z answer.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than being like the old man yelling at a cloud. No, I think as a more real answer, it's hard to say. I think perhaps it was seeing a comic that said, one day you'll wake up and realize that the cloud is just somebody else's computer. And I thought, oh, so that's where my photos are. And yeah, it's just an interesting take on it because I feel like asking about first experience when it's just been such a pervasive part of existence, it was just always there. There was never really a world without it. So the first experience, very neutral, and perhaps exciting realizing what it was and what it could be. But I think just more in the sense of understanding the thing that was always there in a different way.
Yeah, for me it was exciting. That was my experience around excitement. Remembering I've been in IT and computers for about 20 years, and when cloud adoption came to fall, let's call it longer than 10 years ago, but when I started working on it about 15 years ago, that excitement was there because I was used to actually purchasing physical piece of tin hardware that I had to purchase, pay for, got delivered to the data center. I had to unbox it, rack and stack it in the data centers, configure the storage, plug in the network cables, take an operating system disk or USB, install the Windows operating system, configure it to the specs of the owner, the application owner, and get that up and running. And the excitement for me was that cloud introduced this concept of on-demand services where you can just go click of a button and I've got services ready to consume. So that really got me excited in terms of cloud adoption.
That actually is a great segue into my question, which is what foundational knowledge do you think we're getting lost as we move towards the cloud?
That's a great question. And for me, it is how things really work. How does it really work? I think that gets lost. Having that infrastructure thinking mindset, that dependency awareness of how things actually work, being able to understand that infrastructure layer all the way from, like I've mentioned, installing, configuring, handing over, plugging in the network, the dependency on memory, CPU, storage, and how they work together. I think that knowledge gets lost or has been lost in new generations, as well as other components around governance, the importance of governance around adopting new technologies and the reason for those governance mechanisms put in place in an organization. And then I would say ownership. I feel there's a lack of ownership just because the understanding is not there. Understanding that shared responsibility model in terms of when it comes to not just cloud, but when you install an application on a server or serverless architecture, whatever, where's the line between responsibility and what do you own and being accountable for that responsibility? I would love to ask you, do you think universities, you recently out of one,
Yeah.
as a graduate, and boot camps are preparing people well for real work, cloud work?
And I think that's like a bit of a loaded question, really. Do universities prepare you for the cloud? In theory, yes, I think we can kind of go back to what you mentioned about fundamental knowledge. And that really is the important bit that I experienced getting at university. It was less about the specifics of learn this cloud service or learn this platform, and far more about understanding the underlying fundamentals that govern it. Boot camps, I can't say for certain, but I imagine it's a little bit different when you're strictly vocationally focused, and the goal is more just to get you out of the door ready for a job. And so perhaps they do offer training, but I do feel that it's not super necessary to actually focus on the specifics of any particular cloud platform in a formal education context. There are tons of resources available, as I've come to realize. Um, every cloud platform wants you to use their service. They want to get that vendor lock-in. They want everyone on it, which means they make a lot of effort to really put out the materials. I feel like universities and bootcamps should be far more about fundamentals that really get you into a space where you can understand what's going on in the context of cloud, and something where you can apply that fundamental knowledge deeper down with further training that is made available by everyone offering some sort of cloud platform.
That's a great answer. I mean, fundamentals quite key. And I mean, within our organization, we've got some amazing skills programs that help graduates like yourself or even mature individuals in the organization adopt these skills mechanisms and educate themselves on cloud computing.
Yeah, it was really shocking just seeing the amount of resources available and how much easier it was to learn just sort of in a self-directed way compared to being in university, kind of struggling through a lecture where you're not really sure what's going on and if you should even be there. I mean, I used to skip most of them, but we won't talk about that. You've been in the space for a while, and I feel like you've handled a handful of cloud migrations. So if you had to describe them in one word, what would it be?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. Um, I would say discipline.
Hmm.
Cloud migration isn't magic.
Really?
It's not magic.
Oh,
Even though you might think it's magic, it's not magic. It's also not the silver bullet. Anything that you want to implement and be successful requires discipline. Establishing a strong foundation, embedding a cloud operating model within your organization to adopt cloud, but also to allow your organization to transform to be successful, and then also to implement skills programs, like I've mentioned, allowing your staff to skill and be upskilled on cloud computing. These will really help you build those cloud capabilities required to be successful. Cloud capability meaning people, process, and tooling. And to implement and be successful there, you need strong discipline. You grew up with cloud native tools. Does migration seem overhyped and a big deal?
hmm. Yeah, I think it's really interesting coming into this organization and realizing just how much migration is going on. Like we said before, growing up in a more cloud native world, it was just always the way things were done. This is how you start. So it's interesting seeing all the legacy systems. You know, I thought COBOL was a joke. Like we just used to make jokes about the mainframe. Oh, you mean it's actually real and it's over there? Interesting. Yeah, so I think it's a very important thing just for almost the necessary catch up for legacy organizations to really catch up to what, I mean, the usual tech move of move fast and break things works really well when you're in a cloud space and starting from a cloud native point. And so really like it's not really overhyped. It's very important for older organizations to catch up and really get on the same playing field as everybody else so that they can start to really push their innovation and start developing new things on new platforms instead of trying to keep the old stuff alive.
It's a great point in terms of, I'll label it fail fast.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to provide like sandbox environments for young talent or individuals that are not too familiar or developers to really focus on innovation, where they can innovate in those sandbox environments to test and play around with, but also fail fast to be able to be successful quite quickly.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. Like I had a lot of hangups coming into the space thinking I'm working at a bank. It's going to be so slow. And being in the cloud team has been really eye-opening to the amount of innovation and how easy it is to actually push the envelope. Yes, there are constraints because of governance and regulation, but it's still a great space to be in and to be able to innovate. And the resources available to be able to do that are so substantial. So it's been a really big eye-opener for me in my first few months here. And yeah, I mean, You've been in this space for a while. I'd say maybe like how long?
6, 7 years.
6 or 7 years. Interesting. And so
No, so okay, I've been in IT, like I've mentioned, around 20 years. I've been working in Absa for 2 years, but prior to joining Absa, I worked at Amazon, but I was working with Absa to actually help them transform their goals of becoming a cloud-first organization.
Okay, that's fascinating. So maybe 6, 7 years.
Maybe 6, 7 years.
And if you could redesign how companies approach cloud migration, what would you change, knowing what you know in those 6, 7 years of experience?
I believe the first and most important thing to be successful is embedding a cloud operating model within your organization. Cloud migration is not a destination; it's an operating model that you need to embed in your organization. The technology will not let you fail, but the people will. And if you do not bring the people alongside on this journey with you, you are going to have a hard time to be successful. Other component would be completely block unplanned lift and shift migrations. Just because of the gaps in readiness will either ensure that you're going to pay more than what you expected. And I mean, your performance will probably also be degraded. So make sure you are proper cloud ready when you migrate. And then third one would be education. Invest in your organization for education from a cloud perspective. Invest in skills programs to ensure that people are coming along on this journey. They are embedded in the journey. They actually believe, and they become evangelists of cloud through that mechanism.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you. I think you should know that, like, when I think about you as my boss, this is what I'm thinking.
Old man yells cloud. That is, I think that's Bart Simpson's dad. Bart Simpson's dad. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But that was a really good chat. I think we learned a lot about the cloud. I really did just think it was something in the sky until I started working here. Very confusing. And I think really the thing we come to terms with is that this is so much more complicated than it looks, and there's so much more ground to cover, even though we're talking about clouds. So I'd love to chat more about this, really get deeper into it, but this was a really good first roast, I think. What about you?
I really did enjoy it. I'm looking forward to the topics that's going to be discussed after this roast, because I think it's still a hot topic. There's a lot of understanding that needs to happen with an organization. I have to call this out before we end the roast. There's like, I see you wearing Doc Martens. Is that your dad's?
Maybe. I mean,
So you have some class at least.
I'm trying my best. I mean, at least you're not wearing giant sneakers.
Yeah, these are quite Gen Z-like, I believe. Thank you for your time today, Mikhail, and joining us. I think it was an amazing roast as a first tech roast. I'm looking forward to some future roast.
Yeah, I'll see you at work.
Cheers, yours.